Why do you feel personally hurt when someone is late? Even though logically, you know it's just minutes? Why does their lateness feel like a statement about your worth? And if you're the one who's always late, why does leaving on time feel almost impossible? No matter how many times you promise yourself you'll do better. Is chronic lateness about disrespect? Is it about poor time management? Is it selfishness? Or is something deeper happening? Something psychological, something neurological, something invisible that most people never see? Because here's what most people don't realize. Chronic lateness has almost nothing to do with clocks, and everything to do with how someone's brain perceives time, manages emotions, and navigates the invisible pressure of expectations. What you're about to learn will completely change how you understand lateness. You know this pattern if you've ever stood outside a restaurant, checking your phone for the third time in 10 minutes, feeling that specific tightness in your chest. If you've ever received that text, "So sorry, on my way, be there in 10," and you already know it means 20. You know this if you've ever told yourself, "It's fine, they're always like this," but secretly felt like maybe your time just doesn't matter as much as theirs. If you've watched someone walk into a room after everyone else has already started, and you saw that flash of guilt on their face, the same guilt you've seen 100 times before, or maybe you're on the other side of this story. Maybe you've stood in front of the mirror, adjusting one last thing, telling yourself just 2 more minutes, only to look at the clock and realize 15 minutes have somehow disappeared. Maybe you've felt that surge of panic, that specific kind of dread, when you realize you're already late and there's nothing you can do to fix it now. Maybe you've walked into a room and felt everyone's eyes on you, and carried the weight of knowing they think you're irresponsible. Even though in every other part of your life, you show up completely for people. Maybe you've cried in your car because you don't understand why something that seems so simple, leaving 10 minutes earlier, feels impossible for you. And maybe you've wondered if there's something fundamentally wrong with you. There isn't. But there is something happening beneath the surface that most people never talk about. Psychologists call this chronic lateness, but that clinical label doesn't capture the emotional complexity of what's really happening. Because lateness isn't a time management problem. It's an emotional regulation problem disguised as a scheduling issue. It's about how someone's brain estimates time not in minutes, but in feelings. It's about how anxiety distorts their sense of how long things take, how perfectionism makes them adjust one more detail before leaving, how avoidance makes them delay facing uncomfortable situations, how optimism makes them believe this time will be different. And here's the part that might surprise you. People who are chronically late don't want to be late. They're not enjoying making you wait. They're not doing it to prove a point. They're not being selfish or disrespectful. In fact, they often feel more stressed about their lateness than the people waiting for them do. Because every time they're late, they're fighting an invisible battle inside their own mind. This is UNFELT, where we explore the psychology of patterns you've lived with your entire life, but never fully understood. So let's go deeper into this. Let's understand why some people can never seem to arrive on time. What's actually happening in their brain when they estimate how long something will take. Where this pattern started in childhood. The 6 distinct psychological types of chronically late people. And most importantly, whether this is something that can actually change, or whether some people are just wired to be late forever. Here's the first thing you need to understand. People who are chronically late don't experience time the same way punctual people do. Not metaphorically, literally. Their brain calculates how long tasks will take based on how they feel about those tasks, not on objective, measurable time. Psychologists call this phenomenon temporal optimism, the tendency to believe the future will be more spacious than the present actually allows. Let me show you exactly how this works in real life. Imagine someone who needs to leave their house at 8 a.m. to be somewhere on time. They wake up at 7:15. In their mind, they have plenty of time. They mentally calculate, shower is 10 minutes, getting dressed is 5, breakfast is 10. That leaves me 20 minutes of buffer time. It feels safe, it feels manageable, but here's what actually happens. The shower takes 15 minutes instead of 10, because they got lost in thought or scrolled their phone. Getting dressed takes 12 minutes instead of 5, because they tried on 3 different outfits. Breakfast takes 15 minutes instead of 10 because they checked emails while eating. Suddenly it's 7:57, and they haven't even brushed their teeth or found their keys yet. They're not being careless. Their brain estimated time based on the ideal version of how things would go, not the realistic version that accounts for distractions, decisions, and delays. This is why telling someone to just wake up earlier or just leave 15 minutes sooner doesn't actually solve the problem. Because the issue isn't the departure time. The issue is how their brain estimates every single minute leading up to that departure. And there's another layer to this that most people don't realize. Many chronically late people struggle intensely with what psychologists call task transition difficulty. Ending one activity and starting another requires mental and emotional energy. And for some people, that transition feels significantly heavier than others realize. They're reading a book, it's hard to stop mid-chapter. They're in the middle of a thought, it's hard to interrupt their own brain. They're comfortable at home, it's hard to force themselves out the door into the unknown. Each transition becomes a tiny emotional negotiation. And those negotiations, one after another, cost time they didn't account for. Not all lateness comes from the same place. There are actually 6 distinct psychological patterns that drive chronic lateness. Type 1. The perfectionist. They're late because they're trying to make everything perfect before they leave. One more email needs to be sent. One more detail needs to be checked. One more glance in the mirror to make sure everything looks right. They don't want to show up unprepared or looking less than their best. So they keep tweaking and adjusting until suddenly they've run out of time. Their lateness isn't carelessness, it's actually too much care being directed at the wrong moment. Type 2. The emotional avoider. They're late because whatever they're going to makes them anxious or uncomfortable. A meeting feels intimidating. A social gathering feels overwhelming. A difficult conversation feels heavy. So their mind subconsciously slows them down, creating a buffer between them and the thing they're dreading. Lateness becomes a psychological defense mechanism, a way to delay discomfort just a little bit longer. Type 3, the optimist. They genuinely, sincerely believe that this time will be different. They think traffic won't be bad today. They think everything will go smoothly. They think they can accomplish more in less time than reality actually allows. They live in a hopeful version of the world where nothing slows them down, nothing interrupts them, and everything cooperates perfectly. But reality rarely cooperates, and they're perpetually surprised when things take longer than their optimistic brain estimated. Type 4. The quiet rebel. They grew up in an environment where time was rigid, controlling, or used as a form of power over them. Maybe they had a parent who was obsessively punctual and criticized them harshly for being even a minute late. So as adults, lateness becomes a subtle, unconscious form of autonomy. Not dramatic rebellion, just soft resistance. A quiet way of saying, I control my own time now. You don't. Type 5. The dreamer. They lose track of time because their mind lives more in internal worlds than external schedules. They get absorbed in thoughts, ideas, creative processes, daydreams. Minutes pass without them noticing because time, for them, isn't linear and measurable. It's fluid, emotional, shaped entirely by whatever has captured their attention in that moment. Type 6. The overloaded survivor. They're late because they're carrying far too much. Too many responsibilities. Too many people depending on them. Too many tasks competing for their limited time and energy. Their lateness isn't intentional or careless. It's a side effect of trying desperately to hold everything together while slowly, quietly falling apart. Which type resonates most with you or describes someone you know? Drop a number in the comments, 1 through 6. Let's see which pattern shows up most often. Now let's talk about what's happening at the neurological level. Because chronic lateness isn't just psychological, it has biological roots in brain function. Research shows that people who struggle with punctuality often have measurable differences in their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive functions like planning, decision-making, impulse control, and time management. In some people, this region shows lower activation when they're trying to estimate how long something will take, which means they literally perceive time passing more slowly than it actually does. Their internal clock runs slower than the external clock. There's also a strong connection to dopamine regulation. People with conditions like ADHD, where dopamine systems function differently, often struggle intensely with punctuality because their brain craves stimulation and reward right now, not preparation for something that will happen later. So they stay absorbed in whatever feels immediately rewarding or engaging and completely lose track of the clock ticking in the background. Then there's the anterior cingulate cortex, the brain region that helps you smoothly switch between different tasks and mental states. When this area is less efficient, transitions feel much harder. Stopping one activity and starting another requires significantly more mental effort, which is why late people often say things like, "I just couldn't pull myself away," or "I couldn't get myself to move." It's not laziness or defiance. It's neurological resistance to task switching. Their brain literally struggles to shift gears. So, where does this pattern actually begin? For many chronically late people, the roots stretch all the way back to childhood. Maybe they grew up in a household where time was chaotic and unpredictable, where routines didn't exist, where schedules were vague suggestions rather than firm structures. So they never developed an internalized sense of time as something concrete, important, and worth respecting. Or maybe the opposite was true. Maybe time in their house was too rigid, too controlled, too weaponized. Maybe they were constantly monitored, constantly criticized, constantly pressured to be exactly on time or face harsh consequences. So as adults, lateness becomes a form of reclaiming personal autonomy, a quiet, unconscious way of saying, "I get to decide my own rhythm now. You can't control me anymore." Then there are people who learned early on that their time, and by extension, they themselves didn't really matter. Maybe they were always the ones waiting for a parent who was always late picking them up from school, waiting for attention that never came when they needed it, waiting for needs that were constantly deprioritized. So they internalized a belief: time is flexible, negotiable, not that important, especially my time. Here's what most people don't realize about chronically late individuals. Every single time they walk in late, they're carrying an enormous emotional weight: shame, guilt, frustration, self-criticism, embarrassment. They're not walking in late thinking, "Whatever, this is fine, who cares?" They're walking in late thinking, "Everyone hates me. I'm a complete failure. Why can't I just get this one simple thing right?" And here's the cruel irony of it all. The more stressed and anxious they feel about being late, the harder it becomes for them to actually leave on time next time. Because stress and anxiety activate the exact same brain regions that interfere with time perception, planning, and decision-making. So, lateness creates stress. Stress impairs time management. Impaired time management creates more lateness. It becomes a self-perpetuating cycle that feels impossible to escape. And the person trapped in that cycle often feels completely helpless. Now, let's talk honestly about what lateness does to relationships. Because even though late people genuinely don't intend to hurt anyone, lateness still carries an emotional cost. When someone is consistently late, the person waiting experiences a very specific kind of hurt. Not just frustration, not just annoyance, something deeper and more personal. It feels like a small betrayal of trust, like their time wasn't valued, like they weren't important enough to prioritize, like maybe they just don't matter as much as they thought they did. And even when the late person apologizes sincerely and explains what happened, that hurt doesn't always disappear, because lateness, accumulated over time, gradually erodes trust. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like water, gradually wearing down stone. And the chronically late person often has absolutely no idea how much emotional weight their lateness carries for the people who care about them. Have you ever been deeply hurt by someone's chronic lateness? Or are you the late person who carries guilt you've never fully expressed? Share your experience in the comments. You're not alone in this. So here's the question everyone desperately wants answered. Can someone who is chronically late actually change? Or is this just who they are forever? The answer is yes. Change is possible, but not through willpower or shame or constant criticism. Because lateness isn't a character flaw or moral failing. It's a complex pattern rooted in brain function, emotional habits, childhood experiences, and learned behaviors. Which means lasting change requires understanding, not just effort. You cannot shame someone into being punctual. You cannot lecture them into better time management. But you can help them see the invisible patterns driving their behavior. And once they see those patterns clearly, change becomes possible. 1. Track your emotional relationship with time, not just clock time. Start paying attention to when you lose track of time and why. Is it when you're anxious, comfortable, distracted, avoiding something? Awareness of your patterns is the essential first step toward changing them. 2. Build in significant buffer time, but treat it as the real deadline. If something starts at 3 p.m., tell yourself it starts at 2:40. Your brain will treat 2:40 as the actual deadline, which gives you real buffer time. 3. Prepare absolutely everything the night before. Decision fatigue in the morning is one of the major hidden causes of lateness. Choose your outfit, pack your bag, know exactly what you'll do when you wake up. Eliminate morning decisions. 4. Focus on being early to just one thing per week. Don't try to fix everything at once. Pick one commitment each week and make it your goal to arrive early. Let yourself experience what it actually feels like to have time to spare, to not be rushing, to arrive calm. Over time, that feeling becomes rewarding enough that your brain starts seeking it out. 5. Work with your brain's natural rhythm instead of against it. If you're a dreamer, set alarms with specific task labels. If you're a perfectionist, practice the phrase, "good enough for now." If you're an avoider, acknowledge the anxiety instead of letting it control you unconsciously. So, here's the truth about lateness. It's not about clocks or schedules or time management apps. It's about the invisible emotional world people are constantly navigating. And once you understand that, whether you're the person who's always late or the person who's always waiting, everything shifts. You're not broken. You're not disrespectful. You're not a failure. You're a human being trying to align your internal rhythm with the external world's expectations. And that's hard. For everyone, if this video helped you see lateness your own or someone else's in a completely different way, subscribe to UNFELT. This is where we explore the psychology of patterns you've lived with but never fully understood. Drop a comment and tell me, what's one thing you'll try differently after watching this? Until next time, take care of yourself and be gentle with your own humanness.